this is part 2 of Spiritual Chat on Relationships. So one of the things that I wanted to share with you, Carolyn Mace, in her book, Sacred Contracts, she talks about the fact that you should pay attention to animation, good or bad, when you meet someone, because it normally is significant. So an animation, I presume, means like a chemistry, if you have a reaction to someone when you meet them. So if it's a negative feeling, then it's also something you need to pay attention to. And it can indicate that that person is meant to teach you something. You're meant to be forewarned about something to do with that person. It could be from a past life or some experience that's about to come about. And it's quite interesting how, because I've had the experience quite a bit with the point when I had read this in a book. I had a couple of situations where it was guys that I met, and I thought, oh, I don't know what's going on here, because I'm not, I was married. I'm not available for a relationship or an affair, so I don't understand what's going on here. And yet, when the same thing happened, I met a girl, I would know straight away, oh, there's some connection here. I don't know what it is, maybe soul connection. I don't know what's going on. I always saw it in the right perspective when I was meeting a girl, but when I was meeting a guy, it was confusing. I thought, is this an attraction? Meantime, it wasn't an attraction, because with the one guy, the chiropractor, he actually told me to read the book The Hands of Light, which, if any of you know of that book by Barbara Ann Brennan, that's like the healer's Bible. It's got so much amazing information in there. And so sometimes we get confused when we feel a connection with someone, and we think it could be meant to be a relationship or a sexual relationship, when it's actually just meaning that there's a soul connection, and maybe there's some mission that the two of you are meant to work on together, or there's something that you are meant to achieve, and it doesn't necessarily mean an intimate relationship, because that can really confuse things. And I wonder how many people followed through with that and then found out, oh, sorry, it was just that book you were giving me, because that would have caused that could cause a bit of drama in your life. And with the couple of guys that kind of thing happened with, I had pulled back straight away, thinking, I don't know what's going on here. And when I'd read the book, I realized whatever was meant to happen, whatever they were bringing to my attention, had already happened by the time I pulled back. So the guy had already given me the book. The other guy had already connected me with somebody else for something. So straight away, I had pulled back, but thank goodness whatever was meant to be achieved through that connection had already been achieved. But I just thought it's quite good to know, because I know sometimes on Telegram, some of the people are feeling an affinity with somebody, and especially when it's in a spiritual environment, where you're feeling connected, feeling on your spiritual journey here, that you can sometimes misread some things, think that it's meant to be a relationship, and it's not meant to be. So you want to be kind of clear about that, so you're not setting yourself up for any disappointment or heartache. So I just thought I wanted to share that with you. And then I thought I would speak on family, because, man, with my experience of 20 years with formal consultations with people, and then all the people I've ever, because I've always been a counselor, so I've always been giving advice before that. The bane of most people's lives are their families, whether it's siblings or whether it's parents. It's like a non-stop cycle that they can't seem to snap themselves out of. And so I really believe, as far as the parents are concerned, I know in the Bible it says, honor your mother and your father. But I believe that means you need to acknowledge where you came from. You need to acknowledge your genealogy, your DNA lineage, your ancestral lineage. But I do not believe that God intended us to hang on to our mothers and fathers come hell or high water when they treat us terribly. And I have many, many clients that I've seen whose parents were quite abusive with them. emotionally, mentally, besides all the other kind of abuses that we know. But I mean, in some cases where, let's say, the father would bring the son down all the time. And now I'm talking to the man, and he's in his 40s. His father died 10 years ago, but he is still carrying that need to impress his father or to get his father's approval. So it kind of shapes a person's life. And I don't believe God intended it for that. I just think it was to honor where they came from. Because there are times where a parent may not be good, a father or a mother may not be a good role player as a parent, and yet there's an aunt or a grandmother or best friends, parents who play the role perfectly for you. But as a human, we look for it to our biological parents, thinking that why can't our parents be in that way? But if you've had surrogates that have stepped up and played that role for you, that's enough. You wanted the genetics from the biology, but you didn't necessarily want their input in your life per se, you know. And it's also good to know, it's good to ask yourself the question, why did I choose these parents? What did I want to remember to do or not to do, or what did I want to learn? So very often, if you're a female and your mother is a very nurturing, loving person and your father is a tyrant, it's to learn to be the loving, caring person and to remember not to be the tyrant. And very often people, they get confused because they're more focused on the negative experience from the parent who's the negative parent. But if that was the lesson you were meant to learn, then you can let it go. You don't have to be hung up about it. So when we choose our biology, it's for familial patterns, okay, and beliefs to be programmed into our DNA that we needed for what it is we wanted to achieve in this lifetime. But just so you understand things, your physical body is your motor vehicle for transporting your soul around here in the third dimension, okay? Your soul is the driver of that car. So your soul's got its own programming and understand, well, not really programming, but you know what I mean? It's got its own agenda and understanding of stuff. And the physical body has other things and its influences that the soul would have chosen before we came. So as a soul, we choose before we come every life experience we want, all the DNA programming, the role players, whether you're born in Africa, whether you're born in America, whether you're born white, black, yellow, male, female, you choose all the stuff, the geographical location, all that you need for whatever it is the soul wants to achieve for your mastery on the physical plane. Okay, so you could be an Indian in the last lifetime, living in India, practicing the Hindu tradition, and in this lifetime you chose to be someone in South Africa who's white and who's grows up in a Christian community. I've had someone on my channeling course who was asking, she doesn't understand why, was a young girl or in her 20s, and she was asking, she doesn't understand why she's got more Indian friends and she's got white friends, and she's more connected with the Indian music, the Indian culture. She prefers the Indian food, and she doesn't understand why. And when she asked the question, the information was this is her first lifetime where she's not in India as an Indian. So when you understand that there are some things that you will be drawn to. I remember another woman asking, she doesn't know why she's, she's grown up Christian, so she just doesn't know why. She's got Buddhas all over her house. And she was sitting on the couch with her legs folded in the yogic position. And everybody started laughing because clearly there was a connection. And she found out that she had a lifetime where she was a Buddhist and in a Buddhist monastery and stuff. So there's a whole lot more to us than we have any idea. And so trust the way you feel and don't get hung up on what you are now. So let's say you are born in a place where your culture is persecuted. There might be a lesson that you need to be learning regarding that particular culture and to feel what it feels like. Because maybe you were on the other side of that coin in a previous lifetime where you were maybe dishing out to the judgments. And now you needed to have the experience of what it feels like to be receiving the judgments. The only way you can grow compassion is through having the actual personal experience. You cannot just do it by reading a book and thinking, oh, wow, this story is amazing. Yes, I just feel this particular way. No, it has to be from the actual physical experience. So when you have an understanding of something and you understand it deeply, you can feel for that individual, whatever they're going through. Chances are you've actually been through that in a previous lifetime. So there are two things going on. The one is the body, which has the family patterns and lineage imprinted on it or in the DNA. Then there's the soul who works through this body on the physical plane. Without the body, the soul wouldn't be able to achieve anything here. That's the mode of operation here. That's why I have an issue in they talk about the ego. The ego is such a bad thing. That's the new devil. Your ego can get you down and it's going to catch you out. You just got to watch out for ego and don't choose something because you're choosing it out of ego. That's absolute nonsense. So there's two things with ego. The one is egotistical. Okay. And I still believe anybody who behaves egotistical and arrogant, they are not feeling connected with God. They are feeling separate from God, because if they were feeling connected with God, they wouldn't have the need to feel, to behave arrogantly. Okay. So, but the ego, which is the reaction where you get angry or you get, something is telling you something's not right or you're getting fearful, that is the Geiger counter that God gave us in order for us to judge our environment and what's going on around us and what we're observing. So people who are who become more spiritual, and then it's all love and light and love and light, and no matter what's happening, it's great, it's all great, it's love and light, love and light. So what? A person's kicking a dog to death, and you're going to say, oh no, it's all love and light, love and light. Rubbish. That surge of adrenaline that you get in your body is for you to intervene and be able to save the dog or save the individual, whatever's happening. That's why you get that happening in the body. So you can scale a 6-foot wall to get away or to defend. So to just say, oh, no, I mustn't have that feeling. I need to tamper that down because it's not serving me, because that's an egotistical approach. Hell no. Ego serves you extremely well. The only time it doesn't serve you is if you get that kind of feeling that you should be doing something and instead you go home and you kick the dog because you got angry with the situation that you were seeing, and instead of reacting in that situation, you went home and kicked your dog. So the ego plays a very important role. So I just wanted to quickly slip that in, even though that's got nothing to do with, although maybe it has got something to do with relationships. So before we were born, we sat around a boardroom table, and some people have memory of this or they've been able to access this, okay? You sit around a boardroom table and you ask different souls to play the roles of parents, siblings, partners, whatever it is you want to achieve in this lifetime. So teachers, I don't know about you guys, but I can think of maybe 2 amazing teachers in primary school, and in high school, maybe 2 amazing teachers in high school, if you think of all the teachers that you come across. The others were from hell. But those teachers that are the really special ones that you connect with, they're the ones that make you survive all that you have to go through. And I had one in primary school and I had one in high school. So those kind of experiences your soul sets up beforehand, because as much as we think we went to school to learn stuff, I mean, I remember my son in grade 4, Standard 2, he he said to me, so Mom, if we know that the Zulu history isn't, if we know, and he was 9 years old, if we know that all this history is not accurate, why are we learning it? And I thought, oh my God, how do I answer this child? Because I need to answer him. He's asking a really good question. I can't just tell him you just have to do what you have to do. So I said, my boy, you know what you want to be when you're a grown up. So if you want to be that, you're going to have to study university. In order to study in university, you've got to get the entrance qualifications to get into university. In order to do that, you've got to get your matric, which is the grade 12 higher grade. And to get that, you kind of have to do everything that school needs you to do, and answer the questions the way they need you to answer it in order for you to do that. I said, when you're an adult, you can do whatever you like. You can change everything. You can change the history books. But knowing that not everything is exactly as it appears as you're going through school, you still need to answer the questions the way that they require it. And thank goodness he was satisfied with that. But I've had people where their kids have asked those kind of questions, and then you don't really know what to do. But your soul set up the people in the right place at the right time to give you the guidance that you need. And you always feel it because people remember the experience of the conversation with a particular person and how that changed their lives. So you choose all the role players and for the specific agenda that you have of what you want to achieve in this lifetime. And it's always both ways. So there may be one person that you asked, and they said, oh, no, that's going to mess up this lifetime. So, no, I'm not available for that. But someone else will say, oh, no, that fits in with mine, but then can you do this for me? So it's always a two-way learning, not just a one-way learning. So there is a soul connection with all the people that you interact with, and a soul contract with everybody that you interact with. But not all of them will necessarily be deep soul connections. So very often, you will get like you could feel like you're the alien in your family because everybody else is completely different, where you do really feel like you're the woman's daughter, even though you look like your mom and your dad, because your whole way of thinking, your whole outlook is completely different. But I think part of that was we were born into our families, whatever the families were, because like the Muslim families, I've had quite a few people who've come to me for consultations and to learn to do my courses. And the fact that they're even doing something that's out of the ordinary, they're the ones that are bucking the system. Yet they've grown up in very, very staunch religious, in a very staunch religious way. And yet they have still been able to break out and do what they need to do. It's almost like you were giving yourself a real ball and chain to have to work through in order to do what you know your soul needs to achieve in this lifetime. So I found that quite fascinating. And very, very often they are the ones that are supporting the others that are trying to break out and learn new things and discover more in their communities. So our biggest lessons to learn for self-empowerment are normally through our family. So if you've got parents or siblings that drive you nuts, you can ignore them for a day or two, but after a while you have to reconcile because it's so uncomfortable. Whereas if a friend upset you or someone, a work colleague, you can ignore them or you can choose to never have anything to do with them again because those contracts are not as strong for the learning as is the family ones. And that's what makes it quite difficult when we're trying to navigate it, because you are forced to have to face whatever the issue is, whether it's communication, whatever it is. And a lot of people feel like they never survived that part. However, there is no rule that says you should tolerate abuse from anyone, and that includes parents, siblings, or partners. It doesn't mean you have to leave straight away. So in other words, the minute you're in a situation and you're in a relationship and you find that this is partners now, and you find that you have your first big fight and you are feeling hard done by or abused or they're screaming and shouting at you, doesn't mean you have to up and leave straight away. But I'm talking about where it's perpetual. It wears you down and wears you down and wears you down until you don't know who you are anymore. Those relationships you should never stay. Never. Your personal power is coming from your courage to leave. That's the reason why you set that up for yourself. You are never meant to have stayed. And that doesn't mean it doesn't matter if it's mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual abuse. Whatever it is, you don't have to stay in it. It would be good to note, though, someone going through an experience in a relationship does not experience it in the same way that you are experiencing it observing them. So people can sometimes observe abuse in a relationship and be saying to their friend, oh my gosh, you should leave. This is crazy. And they're saying, nobody loves me and I love him. Because while they're in that abusive relationship, each time they say, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I won't do it again. And then they do it again. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I won't do it again. Each time the person that's staying in there, those things are happening at individual pockets of things. They're not aware that, but this is happening every week or this is happening every day. Or you're not seeing that whole thing. But when they do recognize it and they do suddenly see, oh my God, this has gone on for years. I'm out of here. Then they've reached the point of no return. And there's no amount of you talking from the outside trying to get them to leave that or help. They need your support and your love. You need to not be approving of what's going on, but don't disapprove to the point where it breaks down your relationship with them, because they may need you in the end when they finally leave. So that's also something that's really important. And then also don't compare yourself with, some people stay and they say, oh, but my friend's got it far worse in her relationship or with her sister. So I should stick this out because my sister's not as bad as her sister with the way she screams and shouts at me. In the meantime, it's got nothing to do with comparing with anybody else. Because now I spoke about the book yesterday, The Life You're Born to Live, and different people's sensitivities. So for one person, and I've had someone say this to me, where a person has been mentally and emotionally abused for years, and they say they would far rather have been physically abused or sexually abused, because then they can say, this is when it happened. That's the perpetrator. But with the mental and emotional abuse, why it's worse is because they keep on being made out like it's in their imagination. It's not anything what they're saying it is. There's no validation because the person's or people around them are disregarding what their experience is. So mental and emotional abuse may not be, we would think that physical abuse would be far worse. But mental and emotional abuse can actually be experienced far worse than someone who is actually beaten. So there is no comparison. So you can't say, well, my friend's being beaten by her husband, but it's okay if my husband tears me down every single night and tells me how useless I am. You can't compare that, because for both of those are wrong. But some people stay in a relationship because they try to make it okay. And it's not right to make it okay in order for you to stay. If you're not happy, then you need to do something about it. Otherwise, you'll talk yourself out of it and prevent yourself from escaping from the hellhole. So there's no comparison. One person's experience in one way can be 1,000 times worse than what looks like someone else's milder version. There's no comparison. So you have to choose what's right for you. So some person can be a toughie and take physically beaten by a parent, where another child who's very, very sensitive, who screamed and shouted at all the time and has security issues or insecurity, it's far worse for them to be threatened to be sent to boarding school or screamed and shouted at, So, and also that's why it's good to have that book, so that you can check your children's, those of you who are young enough that still have children, or even those that have grandchildren, check what their numbers are. Because for a child who's got no sensitive numbers, they don't have threes and ones in their numbers, they you can smack them or threaten them all you like, it'll do nothing. But a child who is very sensitive, that has threes and ones in their numbers, instead of threatening them, just take away their cell phone or take away their PlayStation and send them to their room. So you're isolating them that they can't do their fun thing, but you're not causing long-term issues with them regarding their insecurity. And then I've encountered so many situations with my clients where it's actually laughable how often this happens. So you have siblings growing up in a household, and you have the favorite. I don't know how parents can have favorites, but they have a favorite. And so the other child grows up always being told, oh, why can't you be as good as so-and-so at whatever, gymnastics or soccer or whatever, or good at the academics, or why can't you be as good as them? Meantime, you don't have the same physique, the same shape, or even the same motivation to do anything of what they're doing. And maybe you're arty instead of being academic. So they, and the parents think, bless their souls, they think that by making the comparison all the time, what they're actually doing to the other child is making them want to strive for more. They don't realize it makes their self-esteem go down through the floor, and they feel unworthy and they don't feel good enough, etc., etc., etc. Meantime, they were never meant to be like the other sibling. But blow me down if in later life that sibling that was academic is now very successful with loads of money. The one that's arty may not have made as much money, so not flush with anything. But guess who's the one that ends up looking after those parents or parent? It's the one that's always been criticized. And then while the parents got them in their home, they look after them, take care of them, clothe them, feed them and everything, they continually have to say, oh, but your sister, she's done this and this and this and this, and she's achieved this and this. And yet that other sibling doesn't come and visit, doesn't pay attention, doesn't want to know anything, and doesn't contribute any money. On the odd occasion, will phone the mother, or the mother will phone them and speak for 5 minutes because they can't wait to get off the phone. But the one who's sitting with the whole problem is still putting up with the same nonsense that they've put up with their whole life. I've never understood that. Well, I do understand that. I mean, I'm saying I never understand why life has created that scenario. But the one that is there that is supporting the parent is normally the one that's still trying to get the parent's approval, which is really sad. And sometimes I've said to my clients, you just should tell your mother to take a flying hike. It's recorded, guys. It's recorded. So you just tell your mother to take a flying hike. If she wants to talk about that person, then tell her, okay, well, then why don't you go and live with her? You don't have to stay with me. You just be clear. Just don't come from a angry perspective, because that's nobody gets it when you do that. But you just calmly say, I can hear you're really unhappy being here. So I think you should speak to so-and-so and ask her if you can go and stay with her. Because sometimes these parents are in the habit of behaving in that way and not even realizing what they're doing. Man, and they don't realize the damage that they do. Although, remember, there are always the soul contracts. So you set it up for yourself, but then you also set it up where you were supposed to stand up for yourself and say, so far and no further, I'm not taking this anymore. There's so many people, like they say, with and thank goodness I've never had that experience. I don't have that experience now, where when the family gets together, and it was quite interesting because I used to get really irritated when people would say, geez, when your family all get together, they're all loud, everybody's talking and all excited. And I used to get mad, like, who are you to judge my family, but I would suck it up. I wouldn't say anything, because I'd always think, oh, it's because their family is always so quiet, and they nobody wants to talk to each other. And then there was, I was involved with this guy a couple of years ago, and he said to me, oh, wow, when your family all get together, they really get loud and excited, and, and I don't know if it was the maturity. I don't know what made me just think, hold on a second, now don't get reactive. Why is he saying that? And as I looked around, because I never grew up with I grew up with my grandmother and not with my biological family. So we only really connected. I only acknowledged them as brothers and sister when I was 30. I think it was 32. And then I told them that I acknowledged them as, because I was the oldest, but I grew up with my grandmother. Because I didn't want the connection with the biological mother, they were kind of all parcel of that. So I just used to call them my nephews and niece, because that's how we'd grown up, And then when we did acknowledge each other, it was really a strong, strong, strong bond. And so I said to him, you know what? It's because we didn't all grow up in the same house. So when we all get together, we are super excited to be in the same place. We appreciate the connection with each other. And I think that's what sometimes happens with people when they have, because they often have these jokes about when everybody gets together for Thanksgiving or for Christmas. We don't have Thanksgiving here, but I mean, when you guys get together for Thanksgiving, how people have to take their high blood pressure tablets and they have to have calming medication, because they know there's going to be some shit show that goes on where somebody's going to cause some problem that's going to trigger something, and there's going to be drama, that there's always, always drama. And so one needs to look at that kind of thing and think, well, do I want to be at those family things? Maybe I can choose something different, or maybe I should create a different tradition, or find a way of communicating it, or speak to, have a family round table. I think a lot of the time communication is really, really important. I've had some people that have spoken about their, where they have their siblings that phone them. And now these can be mature people, like in their 50s, 60s, 70s, although it would have been going on for years and years and years. And whenever the older sister speaks to her, she speaks down to her. She'll criticize her and trash her, and but you know what you were like. You were always just so pathetic. You never ever stood up for yourself. Like really, really ugly, ugly stuff that leaves the individual feeling totally disempowered, anxious, not happy. And then, of course, those people that stir that kind of shit in a family, they normally speak to others and say, oh, but you know about this, yes, you know about that. So it creates this terrible web. So I actually advised somebody the other day whose sister's been giving her a really, really hard time, to the point of where she's been having anxiety and feeling like panic attack coming on. And I said to her, you know what? Just tell, and that's the other thing, because my mother used to do that, the biological mother, and I used to just block her on WhatsApp. She'd send these reams of messages, like wow messages. And I thought to myself, I don't need to put up with this. I never grew up with her. She's got no hook in me. And I would just delete the message and then block her on WhatsApp. So I advised this friend of mine. I said to her, send the message so she doesn't start asking the whole family to find out if you're okay. Send the message to say, I love you, but I'm no longer prepared to put up with your mental and emotional abuse. I'm doing this for my own self-preservation. So until you decide to speak to me with respect and love, we're done. I'm going to be blocking you, and then block them. So they can't go and tell people a different story. You've given them exactly what it is. You've shown that you've come from love. You've shown that you're no longer prepared to put up with their behavior. Because sometimes a person just needs to get the shock of, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. Because some people just spew. They never, ever think of being on the receiving end of something. But that's not how we were meant to live our lives. We were never meant to have to tolerate that. And when you're talking where an individual is 60 and they've had that sibling their whole life, that means that's how many years they've been putting up with that kind of crap. And it's not okay. We're not meant to do that. At which point, as an adult, are you supposed to say, no ways, I don't need to put up with that? And that's the same thing with, because I mean, you get some older siblings that deal with younger siblings. So they feel like they the parent, because there's a big age gap. And then they think they need to dictate exactly how they live their lives. And I remember saying to somebody, tell your brother to take a flying hike, because nobody was telling him what to do when he was 22. So you make your decisions of what you want to do. As long as you let him carry on doing it, it's going to carry on. Why are you letting that happen? Oh, but I can't do that. Yes, you can. And if he gets upset with it, just imagine you won't have to answer to all the stuff that you think you have to answer to. So if he gets upset, he can get over himself. But you need to draw the line in the sand because it's getting ridiculous. Luckily now he's in his 40s and he's much happier that he's not had to tolerate all the stuff from the older sibling. And I don't even know that the older sibling is aware of what they do sometimes. It's just the modus operandi they've been doing all the time, so they just keep on doing things the same way. You don't have to put up with any of it, period. So as an adult, you can choose who you want to have or interact with in your life. If something doesn't serve you, cut it out. If a person brings you down, don't interact with them. Disconnecting from them completely if you need to. But I promise you, you can tell if something feels right or wrong. If you feel a sense of relief afterwards, it means you did the right thing, even though it seems like it was a bad thing that you did, like cutting somebody out. I remember this one situation with my uncle. Every time my gran used to say to me, oh, please just help him. He would come to me and he'd say, he's received a check for the work that he's done, but the bank's not open yet and he needs the cash for whatever reason. Can I cash the check? And then when he cashes the check, he will give the money back to me. Or will I buy something on an account? Because he couldn't have credit. So I would open the account and I'd buy whatever it is. And he was supposed to pay the account. Never did it. It was always me. So I never grew up. I never was one of those that when I started working, I could go and splash out for clothes and I could go partying all the time. I never did that because I never had money because I was always paying off whatever money he owed. And then he would ask my gran to lend her pension and he'd never pay it back. It just went on and on and on. And then the one day, I can't remember what happened. And there was a fallout because I'd stood up for myself with something. And then after a while, I'd fallen out with the uncle. And then after a while, my gran said to me, if you really love me, the old folk, they didn't realize what they were doing, that was emotional blackmail. Because if she understood what she was doing, she would never have done it. I know for sure. And she said, if you love me, you really will help Frankie. And for the first time, it was so clear to me. And I said, if you love me, you won't ask me to do that. And the shock on her face was incredible because she actually realized what was going on. She never, ever asked me to do that again. And because I had the courage then, because obviously that's when I took my power back, that every time that uncle asked anything like that, I would say, oh, I'm so sorry. I'd love to help you, but I really can't. You're going to have to find another way. And I did it without feeling anxious, without feeling guilty or I should help him because I can. No, it was very clear. No. Because as I looked at my life, I realized how I had not been able to do anything because I was paying for all his debts. And he didn't even appreciate it because I had to pay those accounts. Otherwise, my name would have been blacklisted. So I know that was part of the journey of what I needed to learn. But man, that feeling of freedom that came when I stood up for myself, there are no words to describe how amazing that felt. That I wasn't feeling like I was gagged and bound into something that I really didn't want to do. And then they get over themselves, because then you get on fine with them afterwards. They just realize, oh, well, now they've set up their boundaries. I can't ask them to do that anymore. They don't run away, never to speak to you ever again. But the relationship changes completely. Remember that you are the most important person in this world. So always choose you. Because your happiness is more important than anything else. If you are happy, and I know many of you will disagree and say, oh, no, that's selfish. That's just focusing on yourself. Well, guess what? If you're happy, then you uplift everybody around you. And if you're a miserable person, you bring everybody down. So what role would you rather play? I'd rather be a happy person that lifts everybody up than a miserable person that brings everybody down. And the only way you can do that is if you choose you first. Make sure your happiness comes first. I know a lot of the time people put stuff on us that makes us feel bad, where you feel obligated with certain things. I was very clear when my son married, and no, it was when I got divorced. I think when I got divorced, they weren't married yet. When I got divorced, I called a meeting with my son and his girlfriend at the time, fiance actually, and I said to him, right, I'm telling both of you now, if I phone you or I message you and I say I want to see you, but you guys have something else on, unless it's an emergency, which is different, then I want you to be able to say to me, oh, sorry, Mom, we can't come around tonight, but how about tomorrow night, or we can do it next week because we've got something on for the rest of this week. I don't want you to think that, oh, that's going to upset me, or that you feel obligated. That's not how I want this to be. Your priority is your fiance. She's number one, and I'm number two, unless there's an emergency situation. So, and my relationship with my daughter-in-law is not a daughter-in-law. It's like mother and daughter. Our bond is so strong. Because I think of having said that, I've only got one child. I've only got one son. And I didn't want to be that mother-in-law from hell. The one that the son drops everything to go, because my son and I are close. The son drops everything at home in order to go to the mother, because many mothers do that kind of thing where they manipulate their sons to pay attention to them and forfeit their families. That's also bullshit. I should speak to those sons, because it should never ever be like that. So in any experience that you have, know that communication is the most important. You need to speak your truth. And a lot of diseases are caused from not setting your boundaries. Now, it's interesting because I'm also a color therapist. I've done training in aurosoma color therapy. And so the heart area is the color green. That's the heart chakra. And that's about setting your boundaries. So boundaries is a green thing. And so it's interesting how people who have issues with breast cancer and stuff, very often they are people that don't set their boundaries well. They just people pleasers. They do whatever anybody asks them, even when they're hating it. And it was interesting. I was teaching an energy healing course in the States, and there were quite a few people that were on the course that were all in the nursing fraternity. And they were saying, you'll be amazed how many nursing sisters have double mastectomies. And I said, what? And they said, yes, because they feel that they're in the serving field, that they're supposed to take care of everybody. And so they will drop everything and always be serving everybody else, themselves being lost. And I feel you've got to set your boundaries, because I've recommended with people, even clients that I've dealt with who've had breast cancer, and I say, You need to set your boundaries. You've got to this point. You could die from this. So would you rather die than set the boundaries, or just tell everybody, hey, I'm now looking after myself first. You guys can all take care of yourselves. I don't have to sacrifice everything for you. That's how I've got myself into this state. But the difference is when you want to say no, you mustn't say it from your head, because that's when you want to say, well, buzz off. Whereas if you speak from your heart, and I actually tell them, when you are going to set a boundary, touch the center of your chest. That's touching your heart chakra. And that can be fiddling with the button or something, so it's not obvious, but you can just touch the center of your chest. So it focuses you on your heart center. And then if you say, so for example, I mean, I've tested I've tested a client where I've said, so can you set your boundaries? Oh, yes. No, absolutely. So I said, okay, so I'm really desperate. Just for 2 months, only for 2 months, I really need to borrow your car. Can you please lend it to me? And I see them looking around thinking, so I said, you're not really thinking of how you can do that. Well, actually I was, because I don't really use my car all the time. No, that's the wrong answer. You should say, I'm really sorry, but I need my car for myself, so I can't lend it to you. You shouldn't be trying to work out I'm a total stranger to you. How can you even think about finding a way? So I said, so you need to set your boundaries. So the way you do it, instead of saying, hey, crazy lady, you can't ask me if I can borrow my car. Who do you think you are? Because that won't go down well. You say, I would love to lend it to you, but unfortunately I needed to go to work and back every day. And so I'm really not able to. And if you focused on your heart, if you're touching your heart center, you'll be able to keep focused there. So you, instead of saying the no, you idiot, you are saying, I'm really sorry. Or that's even if somebody says something bad to you. Don't say, how can you say that to me, and end up in a screaming match. You just say, that really hurts me when you speak like that. That devastates me. That'll have a completely different effect on that individual that's speaking to you in that way. Whereas if you scream back, it would be, just will perpetuate and carry on and get out of hand. Whereas if you do that, it completely diffuses it and actually is like slapping them across the face with a wet rag, because they'll suddenly realize, oh my gosh, because that might not have been their intention. And even if it was their intention, the fact that you turn that on them like that, it will still give them a shock and will give them a moment of pause to actually think about what it is that they're doing. And what we do is we suck it up. No sucking it up. No sucking it up. That's not with a partner. That's not with anybody. And you can just say, I'm leaving the room now because I'm not prepared to tolerate what's going on. So I'll speak to you later when you've calmed down. Because you've got to add fuel to fire for them to get more and more mad. So if you just diffuse it, they don't know what to do, So, and a lot of the time we spew things when we're angry that can't be taken back. And then we feel bad about it afterwards. So it's far better to diffuse it and everybody's calm, and then they can have a calm conversation. And then be aware of all the people that you have in your life that are really special to you, like a father-in-law, a mother-in-law, a sister-in-law. In other words, someone who's not blood, but it's like a very strong connection that it's hard to believe that it's not blood. There's no blood connection. Because you'll be able to see whoever is not good for you, like mother, father, whatever, there is a good surrogate that's actually been playing the role for you. I remember somebody telling me about their home was terrible. They were never home because their parents used to scream and shout all the time. So they always used to go and stay at the friend's house. And the friend's parents were loving, caring, nurturing people who treated him like a son or the daughter, whatever. And I say, but isn't that amazing how you set that up for yourself? So your home environment wasn't very good, but that's where you had to learn your lessons, and that's where you needed your DNA from. But here you had wonderful surrogates who were really special, and that was also a soul contract in order to feel that same nurturing. So sometimes people that you are really close to may not necessarily be any blood, but the bond is a spiritual bond. That love bond is beyond just a 3D physical bond. It's much bigger than that. It's a real soul connection. So don't feel bad when you don't have a soul connection with your siblings and your family members, or maybe there's only one extended third or fourth or fifth cousin that you're really close to. The rest of them you can't relate to. Just know that's what your soul chose, and don't be hung up about it. And then it's important to be able to let it go. So I have already posted on the wall a PDF. I call it a screaming match, but I put it there as an exercise to release anger towards someone else. And it is a very, very, very potent way of shifting stuff between you and someone else when you are when you know that you can't speak to them face to face. In fact, it never works out if you speak face to face, because each person is speaking from their perception, and everyone is receiving the information through their looking glass and their perception of life, their life experience. So then you never hear it the way it should be heard. Just to give you an idea, two people can be looking at the same sunset. The sunset looks magnificent. You've got the clouds and you've got the sun shining through with these amazing rays playing on the let's say over the sea. It looks absolutely magnificent. So the one person was looking at a scene like that on the day that their child was born. The other person is looking at that scene and they saw that when their mother died. So as much as what they're looking at is completely neutral and beautiful, those two people's experience of that is completely different. So that's what perception is, what you relate to a particular experience. Okay, so when you do this exercise, you are not, please, I had somebody phone me the day before yesterday and said they're so grateful for the fact that I put that exercise in my book, because they just opened the book and they came across the exercise. They were going to go to the person and do the screaming match. And I said, no, that's never ever done face to face. This is done separately, but it clears everything higher self to higher self. So how the exercise is done is that you are looking in a mirror, and this person still said, you have no idea, I never look in the mirror because I think, what happened? When did I get so old? So I said, well, then you don't have to be looking in the mirror at the person. You know that it's not you. You can just be in front of a mirror, but you can be looking to the side, but you can see there is an individual in the reflection. So it's whoever you have the issue with, and it works across the veil, okay? And then you start talking. And as you're talking, initially, you got to think about what you're saying and then saying it. And then think about what you want to say next and then say it. But at some point, something is going to trigger and you are going to be screaming and shouting, and you do not censor yourself at all. So I recommend you on your own in your home. Maybe have some loud music playing so the neighbors can't hear you. But you once it's triggered, all the stuff that is in you regarding that relationship with that person is going to start spewing out. It's going to shock you. There's going to be a lot of screaming and shouting and angry and swearing and cussing and name calling. You don't censor a thing, because at that point you are cleansing every bit of stuff out of your body. And you don't stop until you've emptied yourself out from the bottom of your feet. Then you imagine the person in front of you and you say to them, I forgive you for anything you may have said or done that has hurt or upset me. I ask you to forgive me for anything I may have said or done that has hurt or upset you. And I forgive myself. Very important. So all that stuff you spewed out, you're forgiving yourself because you said that, but it's all being neutralized anyway. Then you hear the other person saying in their voice. So if you were kids, you hear them in their kids' voice, whatever it is, and you hear the person say, in my case, they'd say, Allison, I forgive you. But if it was somebody who called me babe, then I would hear them, if that was their name for me, then I'd hear them say, babe, I forgive you. So whatever is appropriate. And then you hug them, you picture yourself embracing them, and then they walk away. And I've had many people say, oh no, I can do the screaming match, but there's no frigging way I can do the hugging or even the forgiving. And I said, I promise you, when you have said all that you need to say, it's easy to do the forgiveness part and the hugging. The most amazing thing is that is actually happening for real, higher self to higher self. It is something that is really going on energetically. And then when you see that person again, the dynamics in that relationship is completely different. And if you're no longer meant to be in that relationship, the person will be removed from your space. Otherwise, the relationship will take on a whole new foundation. It's actually mind-blowing. Now, what I've given you now was the extreme case, the screaming and shouting, because it's someone you have huge issues with, like father, mother, siblings, whatever, old partners, whatever the case may be. Carolyn Mays talks about, I can't remember which book it was. I don't think it was a book. I think it was in one of her audio programs. And she was saying how energetically we are sending energy to each other all the time. Oh, before I do that, I want you to understand how important the screaming match is. Every time you suck up something where you want to tell a person where to get off, your body releases adrenaline in order to punch their lights out or scale a 6-foot wall. But you just suck it up and just stay there. Adrenaline is a proper physical chemical. And if you are not expending it by scaling the 6-foot wall or punching the person's lights out, that chemical settles at the joints. That's what causes arthritis and rheumatism and rheumatoid arthritis. So when I discovered this, when I was recommended to do the screaming match, it was with my sister-in-law that I was really mad at, but nothing had actually happened it was a slow process. So it wasn't something that I could actually confront, that I could speak to her about. And then when it was discovered that, oh my gosh, I was at cracking point with the fact of not having with us. And this woman told me about this exercise. And I said to her, oh, no. I come from a metaphysical background. So what I give out is what I get back. And she said, my dear, because she was in her 70s, I was in my 50s then. My dear, you are beaming that out all the time. That was my first actual realization about energy. She said, you are like a radio station broadcasting from your body exactly how you feel. So that's why you are aware of each other all the time, because she's probably thinking negative stuff towards you and you thinking negative stuff towards her. Wouldn't you rather get rid of it? And then when she explained about what it does, that the chemical ends up sitting and you end up with rheumatism and arthritis, and I thought, stuff her. I'm not going to still end up with arthritis because of her. And that's what made me so determined to actually do it. And so Carolyn Mays talks about the fact, and I discovered this information that I'm telling you now after the screaming match thing, so it made sense as well, because by then I understood about energy and stuff. And she was saying that when you're mad at your partner, and they made you mad in the morning, and then they went off to work, and you thinking those thoughts, angry thoughts all day. Then when they come home, you're in your beautiful negligee and you've done all your makeup and you've made a beautiful meal, and they walk in like a bear with a sore head. They won't even see how you dressed or the fantastic meal you have, because you've bombarded them. She said that's what psychic attack is. You have bombarded them with all your negative thoughts all day. It would be much better, and also with your teenage kids where you want them to do a certain thing, but all you're doing is they feel like it's criticism. If you sent messages to them all day while they're at school, telling them how much you love them and you're sorry that you shouted at them, whatever the case may be, you sort things out as if you, and this is just a conversation, not a screaming match. They'll walk in there a completely different child, or your partner will walk in a completely different person, because you have cleared all the stuff. So you've sent them love all day instead of bombarding them with all the negative energy. So I highly recommend that you do the conversation. So there may be somebody, and I actually decided to do it with my late husband. I don't know why. I got a bee in my bonnet to, because she said you can do it across the veil. So I thought, oh, maybe there's something that I need to say to him. So I started talking, and I started saying things, and then it started really spewing out, and I was like, you never even asked me. You never asked me if Clinton and I were going to be okay. What were you thinking? Dying on us. Now, that's totally illogical. But guess what? That's how the body was feeling. So when you are doing it, you're going to surprise yourself when you're on the automatic. I mean, with this thing with my sister-in-law, I thought it was all anger. And then somewhere in the spewing of all this stuff, the next thing I burst out crying because I was saying, how could you do this to us? We were so close. How could you betray us in this way? And that shocked me. So here, the betrayal, which is the green thing, which is the heart chakra, was hidden behind the anger, which is the base chakra stuff. So in color therapy, the blue and the red are the opposites. So sometimes the experience can be happening in the red, which is the base chakra, which is anger, frustration, resentment. But the experience can actually be a betrayal, which is a green thing, which is the heart chakra. So anger covers most of the evils, anger, frustration, resentment, because you don't have to recognize what's really going on. But betrayal is a far bigger emotion to deal with. So sometimes you don't realize why you're angry is because you feel like they betrayed you. So I highly recommend that you do that exercise. I've put it on the wall, the PDF, so you can download it and do it. And I'd make a list and put it in order of priority. Who's the biggest bane of your life right now? Put that at the top. And if it happens to be your partner or an ex-partner, especially if you had a terrible relationship in the past and you got divorced or break up and it was really horrendous, you'll have plenty to say. And then if there's anything with parents who have died, because then you think, oh my gosh, now, or anybody that's died, and then you think, now I can't even sort the thing out now because they've died. It clears it across the veil because they are still around. They haven't gone anywhere. So you can still sort stuff out energetically between you. As much as you can feel the love from them, you would be able to feel when a release like that happens. Because a lot of them, they realize, like parents who have died and realize, oh my goodness, I didn't realize how much pressure I was putting on you, and I'm really sorry about that. That when you do the release like that, you will feel, you'll dream about them, or something will happen that'll show you that something has shifted. Because you release them and you. So they don't need to also do the screaming match unless they have issues with you. So it's really powerful for you to do that. Okay, so I'm going to stop now and I'm going to open up for any questions.